Welcome back, guys. Today it's time for more Legacy on the channel. It's been a while since I've been jamming some games, so yeah, let's get into it without further ado. Today's deck is Dimir Delver. Dimir Delver is a deck that I believe is very strongly positioned in a world of where the necessity of Maindeck Graveyard Hate is important, in a world of where having a solid mana base is important. I'm mainly talking about, Reanimator, Oops, Blood Moons, opposing Wastelands here. And in a world where we are going to be playing against a lot of Dimir Delver, so this is especially where I think the Nethergoyf will shine. Very resilient against Lightning Bolt, can even come back in a pinch. And we are also going to be playing against various combo decks, so just having Thoughtseizes on top of the normal Dazes and Forces should be decent. Of course, this also comes with a few downsides. One of the downsides is the removal spell, or lack thereof, we have for Chalice of the Void is pretty bad. You could, in theory, run, like, I don't know, an Engineered Explosives or Third Brazen. The way I've tried to mitigate the effect of Chalice is with a couple of Barragoyfs and going up to the full playset of Bowmasters. Who knows if that's enough. Mana base, very straightforward. 1 Surveil, 4 Wastelands, 1 of each basic. Flex removal spell being Dismember. This is good against, Bombardier, Fleshraker. It's good against Troll. It's solid, right? Flips the Delver. Totally fine. Then a single Brazen Borrower. Sometimes it attacks. Sometimes it pitches to Force. Sometimes it bounces a permanent. Sideboard, we address Eldrazi, Red Stompy, Oops. Consign is a very, very flexible card. Hydroblast, they're still in there. Bunch of mono red, bunch of Dimir Delver. Second Brazen for whatever we need. A couple of Force Negations for combo. Then a single Snuff Out. You could run, 2 Shoot the Sheriff. You could run 1, like, Go for the Throat. I have 2 hard removals here. 1 being a 0 mana, 1 being a 2 mana. I think that'll be just fine. Then a couple of Barragoyfs for any fair matchup, basically. Very good against Ancient Tomb. Bowmasters for any X1s or cantrip matchups, and then a couple of cages to go on top of the Nile Spell Bombs. This is very important. We have Maindeck Graveyard Hate, so we go up to 4 against Reanimator and Oops. And it has crossover use against Nadu decks. So, without further ado, let's get into some games. Alright, round 1 on the play here with Dimir Delver. The swamp looks scary in my opener. Am I supposed to do any hedging? I don't think so. I think I just play my Delver and move on with my day. I also think if my opponent is wastelanding me here, in general, that's not going to be a very good play, so it's not something I would expect my opponent to do very often. I think you can easily scare yourself out of situations like this and then not make your best play. It looks like just the triple 1-drop start is going to be the best move. Flooded Strand could be anything. Control is kind of the nightmare, but also a deck that doesn't see a whole lot of play. But I guess this is a league. It's not, I don't jam that many leagues, but this is definitely the place to play against decks like that. So another Goyf, I'm not going to show. Let's attack here. If our opponent decides on the Source to Plowshares, looks like no plow. So let me go Swamp, Delver, theoretically play my best card around days, and then another Goyf. Opponent with no fetch. So what does this tell us? This tells us they want to build their mana. They maybe don't even play Surveil. They're kind of afraid of Wasteland. So maybe we're up against some kind of control deck and I get Bowmastered here. Or some, Stoneblade type of mid-range. The beautiful thing is my hand doesn't have a whole lot of agencies. We just play our cards, right? Brainstorm main phase here out of an Underground Sea. Yeah, I mean, my best bet is still something, mid-rangey. But could even be a blue-black, Tempo Mirror, Tameo style. Okay, so I guess I want to really flip those Delvers here. Wasteland would also be acceptable. Flooded Strand. Flooded Strand, a very bad draw. So do I want to attack for 1 with the Nethergoyf, or do I want to have flexibility on the Delvers? And I think it's fair to say I want flexibility on the Delvers. So let's see. If my opponent has like a Fatal Push on attack step, I guess attacking is correct. I am going to play another Nethergoyf, and I'm not going to be happy about it, but yeah, that's what this hand does. This hand has absolutely no chance against the sweeper. This hand is basically hoping my opponent plays, I don't know, Barrogoyf was the best card I could come up with here. So let's see. Is surveilling better than seeing a bad card, fetching it away? It's kind of like a free surveil. This will bolster the graveyard, though, if I hit a bad card. I wonder what's better. I should probably know that. Basic Plains is not what I want to see here. But let's be honest, I have my hands full trying to figure out how to use this fetch land. Yeah, maybe I just surveil. Try and high roll a little bit. So now my opponent can play the 3-drop they initially thought they were kind of saving up towards. Let's see what that is. Okay. Very acceptable card here. I'm actually excited that my removal spells are now live. Swords to Plowshares on the Delver. That works. So... Yeah, I guess this is time to use my mana. If my opponent has a Brainstorm, I'll have to push once more, which is very annoying. If you don't. Let's try and surveil here into something good. Daze is reasonable. It flips the Delver. And I have that card in my hand, so I'm kind of ensuring a hit of 7 here. Also, my opponent could just be, you know, playing me here, and they just Supreme Verdict me to back to the Stone Age, but as I alluded to, I don't have the luxury of worrying about that because I don't have any agency. I simply, you know, play my cards and hope it's good enough. Some games of Magic are like that, where you're kind of at the mercy of what the opponent can produce, right? This game, I had one real choice, in my opinion. Well, I guess whether I should expose my Underground Sea or not is an actual choice, but I think on the play, we just do that every time, turn 1. And it was basically the Surveil. Silent Clearing is not a card I've seen in Legacy ever, I think. Oh, maybe, yeah, well, that's a lie. Maybe out of some Death and Taxes builds. So now the opponent has 3 mana. They know they're up against Daze. They can currently take the damage down to 1. Sorcery? Bauble? Force of Will. That should be good enough. Now I'm attacking my opponent down to 1, unless something weird happens. Taproot Clearing. That would be kind of nice. Snapcaster Mage. Wait a minute. Why did my opponent tap the Silent Clearing and not? So if I let this resolve, I can daze whatever the target is, and I can kill the Snapcaster, so I should be good here. Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to tap your Silent Clearing there, to be honest. So... not gonna let my opponent block. Kill it with a Fatal Push, and that should be game. My opponent knows about this. I guess Force Negation keeps my opponent afloat here. All right, so we take game 1 here, playing against what is probably a tough matchup. Ton of removal, Tameo, and Snapcaster. Do we have anything cool for that matchup? Bowmaster is something cool. Barrogoyfs, that's also something cool. I'm not big on the Dazes and the Forces here, but I don't think we can cut that much stuff. Brazen Borrower is probably serviceable without being exciting. Kind of like Nile Spellbomb. Probably keep those in the deck. So do I cut Forces or do I cut Daze? Maybe I have like a 2-2 split on the draw, and then on the play I have full amount of Daze. I also think Snuff Out is a slight upgrade to a Fatal Push. Dismember is quite bad, though. So maybe... what's better here, a Force or a Daze? I'll try and go for a Force of Will, but I'm not sure. And on the play, I'll go up to 4 days. How much spud removal do I have right now for Tamiyo? I have 4. Yeah, I think that's just a good number. I could even go to 3 if I believed in my counters a bit more. I'll try and keep it like this. It's always tough when I play against non-metagame decks. Basically, well, the sideboard is not tailored for any, Esper mid-range control-y type deck. Also, the opponent could have something like, I don't know, Triumphant St. Catherine, Metamorphosis Fanatic, and then all of a sudden my non-fatal push removals are better. This hand looks playable. I can go, I was about to say turn on Thoughtseize, turn to Wasteland, Nethergoyf. I'll definitely Thoughtseize turn 1. Question is, if I crack a fetch... Yeah, that could be useful. Start building for Murktide, making sure I sacrifice a land, whether it's a fetch or a Wasteland every turn up until that could be clutch. It's sometimes hard to predict. I don't think I'm going to respect cards like Back to Basics, etc. So let's just go for duels here. What is this? Surgical Extraction. Wow. Okay, so my opponent's hand is definitely filled with good cards. I noticed the mana base is not the best necessarily, but I also noticed that my opponent will have to go for black mana off the Lorn Revealed, and that is something that I can wasteland. So, and if I go for the mana, I'm basically saying I have to close out the game somewhat quickly before my opponent recovers, and I don't think that's realistic at all. So funnily enough, it actually looks like the Bowmasters is going to be the most annoying. Well, I have 4 Bowmasters in my own deck, so maybe we just invite our opponent to do that. I guess I take the Plow because I can use Nile Spellbomb to break the Snapcaster. Let my opponent go for the land. They play Underground Sea. I Wasteland. They deploy Bowmaster. That's fine. I play Nethergoyf. Okay. I think I have a game plan. Also have 4 Bowmasters from my own deck, so it's not that great for my opponent to run it out. They don't cycle the Lorn Reveal. That is very surprising. So Plow is gone. Let's see if we can draw a good card. Thoughtseize is a good card. No doubt about it. So the thing is, I kind of have to Nile Spellbomb this turn. Maybe that's totally fine. So what happens if I go... Let's count the graveyard here. 1, 2, 3 with the Spellbomb that I'm cracking. 4 next turn. Fetch. Yeah, that is enough for a Murktide. Let's see. I'll play Nile Spellbomb here and cantrip it before my opponent gets the chance to play a black land for Bowmasters. One of the worst things that could happen in this game is I draw like a bunch of cantrips. And I don't find an answer for the Bowmasters, so might as well try and mitigate that. So sacrifice Nile Spellbomb. Target the opponent's graveyard. I draw a card. Nethergoyf is a decent draw. Any spell at this point is going to be a decent draw, to be honest. And here's my opponent exposing the sea. Okay, well, Teferi is annoying. But I think if I deploy 2 Nethergoyfs in Wasteland my opponent here, I'm in a decent spot. Let's see. Nethergoyf. Nethergoyf, Wasteland. Okay. Force of Willing the Second is probably pretty good for me. Let's see. So now my opponent's hand is Surgical plus Bowmasters. And let's see. Am I supposed to try and strand the Bowmasters from the hand with Wasteland or simply just take it with Thoughtseize? That's kind of the question. But I think I'm supposed to try and strand it here. Stop my opponent from playing Magic, basically. So now with the Nethergoyf being a 4/5, my opponent can cantrip with the Teferi to bounce it, which is kind of annoying. Well, oh wow. Yeah, I made a mistake here. Wow. This is where not having played against surgical extraction for a long time is relevant. The opponent actually gets mileage out of surgical here. And yeah, I should have thought to use discard. I was not supposed to let this happen. Great play by the opponent, capitalizing on my mistake here. So now, I think my play is Thoughtseize Murktide, which should be very strong. Thoughtseize, play a 5/5. See our opponent's hand. I think I'm supposed to... Oh, maybe I'm supposed to leave them with the Bowmasters because I have my own. Maybe I just take Counterbalance. Counterbalance could be annoying in a longer game. That's kind of the game that I'm more likely to lose, I would guess. So now, fetching can keep a Nile Spellbomb in the yard. I think that's the best type to keep, but maybe it doesn't matter now that all the Nethergoyfs are gone. So my opponent basically needs to find a plow right now, or I'm really in the driver's seat. Oh, wow. A Miracle Triumph. So Triumph is definitely a card that I had on my radar when sideboarding and talking about the post-board games. But yeah, whew, that was timely. So 5/5 lifelink is also an annoying stat. Might have to trade off with that card at some point. But for now, I have to kill the Planeswalker. Then I'm basically hoping my opponent draws a Brainstorm. Ponder will also do. Me playing out the island is debatable, but I do have Force Will in my deck, so let's say I draw Force, then I have the ability to play out my 5th land and actually have a hardcast Force of Will. That wouldn't be, you know, that wouldn't be terrible. My opponent's hand is currently not Counterbalance. It's Thoughtseize, Bowmasters, and one unknown. The bad thing about this situation is if I trade off the Triumph, then I don't have any pressure, and I'm the Delver deck. But I don't want to play my Bowmasters out either because they have their own Bowmasters. And it's unrealistic that I get the job done before they find black mana. So, all in all, an annoying game. Ooh, what a draw. What a draw. So, I think I'm supposed to do it now because if my opponent magically... No, they can't have anything magically, actually. So... So the reason why I do it now is I actually want my opponent to have a Brainstorm in hand, so they're incentivized to try and set it up end of turn. And then I can kind of pounce with the Bowmasters. Now I hang... Oh, no, I don't hang on to the land. I was about to say I hang on to the land because I don't want to give away the info, but actually now if nothing happens, I have 3 mana to spend here, so that for sure overrules trying to be tricky. Yeah, that Brazen was an insane draw. Now play Brazen. And my opponent is dead in 2 hits thanks to the Bowmasters. Second Wasteland is not going to do anything. And now my opponent needs to draw Teferi or Plow to stay in the game. We definitely take those. Looks like they found the Plow and they're casting it on upkeep here. It doesn't really do anything. If it doesn't work, then the opponent just loses the game, so... in this case, I think I'm supposed to play out the Bowmasters in order to kill my opponent as fast as possible. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. I was about to say, response Brainstorm here would actually be brutal. So, Murktide hits the bin. I think this is the way to play, where I'm basically saying, you go down to 8 now, attack for 5, down to 3. I give you the absolute least wiggle room as possible. Play Delver, attack for 5. My opponent finds Black Source, they have to kill the Bowmasters, and then I can fly in for lethal here. So we should have this locked up. This was a pretty intense game with lots of small decisions, scary with the opponent sticking the Teferi. So let's see here. If I don't flip the Delver, my opponent can Bowmaster. They have to kill the flyer in that case. Block here. Okay, so my opponent can actually survive at a 1. Okay, so... Well, or can they? Yeah, I think they can. Okay, that's another Delver. Not great. So what happens if I attack with everybody here? Shoot. Block. Block. Go to 1. I play an additional creature. I think this works. Then I have 2 creatures, my opponent's at 1. But it's, yeah, I mean, opponent wasn't far from stabilizing here. Third basic. Orcish Bow. No force. Kill the Brazen. We knew about that. So what I could have done here is only send the Orc army. And then I would also brick my opponent's cantrips. Yeah, I mean, now I'm saying on the other hand, my opponent needs 2 removal spells, so not a single prismatic ending or plow is gonna do it here. My opponent needs to draw. Yes, that is exactly what my opponent needs to draw. Okay. Okay, I mean we have a game here, and that's better than not having a game. So let's go. I think I should just force the trade. Another Delver. Yeah, this game is cool. I can't complain. I love games that keep on going. I don't love games that end. Why would we want that? Fetchline's not going to do anything until the opponent has gained life. Okay. I mean, this is exactly what the opponent needed. Plow into Bowmaster into Plow to stay alive. So we keep going here, which is kind of awesome, not going to lie. So now I find Fatal Push. Fatal Push is probably not that important here, but it does open up my ability to, you know, draw cantrips and get unlocked. Silent Clearing is sacrificed. Cameo. Okay. So how many Bowmasters do I have left? I have 3 Orcish Bowmasters left. The opponent correctly attacks here. Question is if I should kill it. I think I should. Let's see if this lack is playable. I will kill it with a Fatal Push, because I think I have to sooner or later. And there's some chance I need a lot of mana on my next turn. Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks so much for watching. This game really delivered. Because 99 times out of 100, this game is over 5 minutes ago, but that's not fun, right? This is why we play Magic. We play Magic to find out what can possibly happen for this to keep going. What can possibly happen for me to, you know, win the game? What can possibly happen for them to stabilize the game? So this is just the roles reversed. And we have to appreciate that. If we love the game, we should also love the fact that my opponent is hanging in there, right? Otherwise, we're just interested in our own success in the game. But yeah, this is just why Magic is the greatest game. And I'm not talking about the lag here. So yeah, Bowmaster gone. We're at a healthy life total. I guess let's draw the Bowmaster. If we don't draw the Bowmaster, do I have any interest in developing the 6th land? I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to get wasted out of this deck. The worst thing is my opponent wastelands a C, moves to the 2nd main phase, they play a banger of a card, right? So now Tamiyo is going to try and take over. I have Orcish Bowmasters as instant wins in my deck. But I'm also up against, you know, my opponent getting to 5 non-fetches, I guess, 5 lands. Play the 5/5 out. So let's see what this is. If there's any meaningful spell, I'll hardcast Force of Will. I think against a card like Ponder, I'll be fine. You could argue that forcing the Ponder so my opponent doesn't flip the clue is going to be useful, but I'm not sure. Here's Tundra, something that I can kill. So now I've put a clock on myself, which for sure makes me question the non-force on the Ponder. It's actually a play I make quite often, but here I failed to add Tamiyo into the equation. That was probably not very smart of me. I draw the second Force of Will to laugh at me, basically. Okay. This was a cool game. I'm already talking as if it's a foregone conclusion that I'm gonna lose, but no matter how this turns out, this was a cool game. And I actually think I got the hardcast Force wrong here. That was not strong. Because in a situation like that, you're not really looking to force key spells. You're just looking to force a will, you know, anything that kind of stomps the opponent's development or stalls, right? Because I have these win the game on the spot cards in the deck. Opponent is now on 8 with the Tamiyo. Bowmasters is still lethal. I guess we get to see now. I bobble into another bobble. My opponent draws a bunch of cards. Well, I'll hang in here because I have the Force of Will and my opponent only has 1 life. So now my opponent is going to draw 16 cards. But what are you going to do with those when you don't have life to play with? That's kind of that's the question here. Not forcing that Ponder looks so bad right now. I put myself in a terrible position. Also, oh yeah, this was also this game. My opponent also played well with the Surgical, and I did not play well. So I played poorly against the Surgical. I should have thought seized the Surgical. I played poorly with my Force Will on Ponder. Should have easily a hardcast Ponder, hardcast Force onto the Ponder. So that's just mistakes you're not allowed to make. So even though this game, I got super lazy. That's the thing, right? That's the gap. The gap here is I didn't ask myself the proper question, which is how do I possibly lose this game? And my opponent, you know, speaking of just playing out their cards, that's basically just what happened here, right? They just played out their cards. Like you could say, oh yeah, the opponent got lucky, sure, but you could have mitigated that. You could have made sure that luck was not enough to win this game. I'll let the Mentor resolve because I think it's Bowmaster or bust for me. Trying to think here. Right now, Plow onto the Mentor is an actual out, but that is a card I can daze, so I don't think there's a reason to wasteland. Let's see, did I surveil this game? I did not surveil, so yeah, well, let's see. Brainstorm is good enough for sure. So now... I get a lot of looks here. If I let my opponent untap, they have the ability to cast more swords, which is life gain. Yeah, well, we just go for it here. Great game. Drawing the card off the bauble. I could get Bowmastered here, which isn't really relevant in my opinion. Because it's kind of now or never for me. So that works. I draw. I get a lot of pings here. Lots of pings. I find my Bowmaster. Well. Now we basically see how many plows the opponent can come up with. They need 2 plows here to win. Orcish Bowmasters with Force of Will backup. My opponent needs the remaining 2 plows of their deck to beat me. Force of Will is not going to do it. If they don't have exactly 2 plows, they're dead. I love my opponent's deck, by the way. Esper, basic lands, Mentor. Yeah, that's the dream. But let's see if they can come up with exactly 2 plows. And now, funnily enough, if I had wasted on my turn, my opponent would be out of luck here. This is one of the best games I've ever had on camera because there's so many learnings, so much small stuff where, let's just say I win this game 10 minutes ago, then all of this learnings would not be, you know, out there, right? So yeah, very ideal scenario. My opponent needs the remaining 2 plows. I have 14 cards in the deck, so I'm an odds favorite at this point. Also, wow. If I don't play out this land, my days is even live. Oof. Okay, so that resolves. Shooting my opponent for 1, and here comes the plow. Let's see. Oh, wow. So I made a ton of small... Well, you can call them small, but the reality is they're game-losing mistakes, right? If I don't play at this land, I win the game, because I have an extra ponder in my hand. If I waste on my opponent, I win the game. If I force that ponder, I buy myself more time. If I play better on that surgical, I turn out the clock. So it turned out to be a handful of things I could have done better. A lot of Magic on a high level is trying to minimize those. And then from the other side, it's to capitalize on when the opponent makes these small missteps. Yeah. So this is another one where, sure, I won the match, but I did not play perfectly. But I think I was able to catch the majority of the situations I could have played better. And I think that's very valuable for the learning purposes, both for me and for you guys. So thanks for watching so far. Let's grab another one. All right, round 2 after what an amazing first round. So many learnings, so many cool scenarios, and it worked out in the end for the home squad, despite, you know, not my best efforts, to be honest. But as I said, the learnings are the most important part, especially of doing content. It wouldn't be fun if I was just, you know, crushing everyone. So what do you think about this hand? I think a big enough chunk of the metagame is combo that I'm willing to keep this hand. I can... I should probably Thoughtseize out of an Underground Sea turn 1, mainly because then turn 2, if I need to wasteland, but I draw like a Delver or a Ponder, I can cast that card off the sea. The Swamp will limit me a bit. Okay, so which one is better here? I think because Flooded Strand is access to basic island later on in case I'm up against, you know, Blood Moon or Wastelock or whatever. I want to hang on to the Flooded Strand. Let's say those lands didn't have, you know, how can I explain it? Let's say that was not the big tiebreaker. Then you could think about what disguises the most about your deck, etc. But that's obviously not the main priority. Let's cast turn 1 Thoughtseize. By the way, look at this artwork. This is amazing. The fairy basically seizing the thoughts out of the ear of the elf, most likely. Well, I'm not an expert on this, but yeah, just beautiful artwork. Okay, we play against Nadu, one of my other favorite decks. So this hand does absolutely nothing if I take the Nadu. Unfortunately, my Wasteland is very bad against that hand, but my opponent also has a bad hand, so I guess that kind of adds up. And then when they eventually find a Zenith or Nadu, I can Force Will that one. Opponent does have Force, so hopefully I can do something meaningful in the meantime. Here's Forest Noble. So no Forest, no Noble. Okay, another Grave is not bad when you're doing nothing. The Curd Ape. I then get to Surveil end of turn against that deck. The basics don't matter. Still have the Force. But my opponent also might have a Force, which is the disadvantage of being the, let's see, on the receiving end. Let's say my opponent 3 turns from now casts Nadu, then chances are they also have Force backup. So this is kind of a false sense of security, I'll say. Blooded Strand played out. I now know 3 cards of my opponent's 5. This matchup is all about, you know, putting on pressure because pound for pound in a longer game, you're not a favorite. Here's Undercity Sewers, finding myself a Fatal Push. The thing is, the Noble isn't really great, and I don't have Revolt for Fatal Push later. But even just, you know, killing a Nomad, etc. is probably good enough. My opponent has infinite lands in hand. There's no way I'm gonna kill that Noble. So killing a Noble would enable me to attack for 3, but I don't think it's worth it. I think this is gonna be a long one. So while the Nethergoyf is decent and all, it's a very slow clock here. I hate it when that card's a Curd Ape. If it's a 3/4, it's a good card. As a Curd Ape, it's not a good card. My opponent fetches to thin and pass, and like it just takes the turn, which is a reasonable thing to be doing here. Also, they will probably worry a little bit about Bowmasters. Here's Nadu. So I think we just force the issue here, which is basically trading forces. And then I end up, oh, we don't trade forces. My opponent has 2 non-blue cards in hand. Okay, that's probably decent for me. I'm going to hang on to the Wasteland because right now that's my way to defend against the next Nadu. Play this one out. Building towards potential hardcast force off the top. And leaving a fetch line in play is decent. Worth noting is I already have my Surveil land in play, so the upside is only to build towards force, and I'll put a land into play that I might want to use to shuffle with a future drawn cantrip anyway. So if this was an Underground Sea, it would be way less exciting. Not going to Wasteland here. My opponent bins a Delighted Halfling. That says a lot about their hand, but we obviously knew that from Thoughtseize, but usually it's good to, whenever the opponent has this, oh, I wonder why they Thoughtseized this, or wonder why they surveilled that to the graveyard. We can, that gives us an idea about the opponent's hand. So opponent decides to hang on to the Misty. Maybe they didn't keep track of what I saw. Or maybe they just want access to exactly that card. So here's probably a Zenith. And that's going to be a problem. Because that is a Nadu. Yeah, I don't think I can do anything smart here. That card resolves. Oh, Uro. Crap. Forgot about that card. Yeah, that's a very good plan B that I could probably not beat. I do play Nihil Spellbomb, though. Yeah, Uro's amazing. Opponent with no attacks. But they knew I would have played my Bowmasters if I had it, so I guess they're holding up Plow. I draw Nihil Spellbomb. That's probably quite sick. Nihil Spellbomb. Let's attack with Nethergoyf. Maybe I should have... I think maybe I could have played a little better here. Okay, I do get plowed. So I guess I'm doing just great here. I probably cycle now because I can draw into something to play. But a cool play you can make that I just want to mention here is, let's imagine I don't have the fetch line, right? Or even if I do, it's fine. Then on my opponent's upkeep, I can break their graveyard. And then I still turn on Revolt for the whole turn, right? So, but here, the factor of me having the opportunity to draw into a threat right now, or ponder or whatever, is more important. But I'm just saying, in a world where, yeah, this will just come up, that you can trigger Revolt in numerous ways. So I guess let's get rid of that graveyard. The opponent has Force of Will and 1 Unknown in hand. And we have a tiny lag here on Magic Online. So there's that. I draw another Goyf, so perfect upside to cycle. I don't worry about days because I have a lane in play. I keep the lane in hand because I play Brainstorm. I'm holding up heart removal for Nadu. And I would say this is anyone's game. Maybe the opponent is a slight favorite, but I'm not sure about that. Opponent is binning a Force of Will. That says that they need something, and I'm currently ahead. Otherwise, he would just take that Force of Will, right? Oh, yeah, that's a good card. The opponent has Hardcast Force up. That's the last card. Okay, so very even game here. The opponent decides to not attack. So this is a good play from the opponent, because if they do attack, then I can use my Wasteland to kill the Hedge Maze, move to second main phase, and play something through the Hardcast Force. So that's a play for the opponent. Here's a Ponder. This is funny. This is the situation from the last game. And I don't think the opponent will counter this, but I actually think it would be correct to counter it, which is kind of funny. So now the question becomes, am I willing to go Wasteland, push, change main phase to strand the Force of Will in my opponent's hand? I should probably let my opponent force the Delver. I think that's just better. I don't think my opponent has any more Surveillance in the deck, so that's why I can play it like this. If I think my opponent has Surveillance in the deck, what I should do is Wasteland the Hedge Maze, go to the next main phase, and then force them to find something else, keep them guessing on days, etc., etc. But this is basically me saying I don't have the days, because then I would have played like that. So I do get Hardcast Force here. I'm not going to do anything else this turn. Wastelanding doesn't make sense. It's better to have a colorless available for me. Opponent on 0 cards, but that deck top deck's like a champ. With Uro out of the equation, though, I'm a bit more happy. So this is where the investment of keeping the Swamp in hand will hopefully come in handy here. Draw the Brainstorm. Let's Brainstorm. I'm erring towards tapping this as often as possible, because I think if I ever find a daze, there's a chance this is the one I want to return, so I want to make sure I've used it, right? So this is a bit annoying, because now I have to shuffle. And that makes it so that I don't have Revolt, but I do because of the Wasteland, so I think I'll be fine. So while it's tempting to kill the Noble, I will wait. Hopefully I can catch a cantrip. Come on, Magic Online, you got this. So let's see what the opponent's working with on top of the deck. The dream is to catch some cantrips. As long as this is in play, I'll have to, like, kill it before I can Bowmasters a Nomad. But I think that's reasonable. Opponent has a Ponder on top. We do like to see that. So now I'll fetch to draw Freshie. I don't think drawing a Bauble here makes sense. That would just be another delayed cantrip. Draw Daze here. Does that do anything? Let's see. If I Wasteland my opponent, they play cantrip. Then if their card in hand is exactly Force of Will, it helps. But I think I want to have Revolt active for later. So here, let's go Orc. If I get Hardcast Force, it's brutal. I will say that. So kill the Noble. Work a little bit on the opponent's life total. Worth noting is I don't have Revolt, so we'll have to daze in order to have Revolt this turn. I will daze. Let's say my opponent cast it like a Zenith or Nadu, then I'll just daze, and then I can push it, soaking up the, let's call it Leovolt advantage of that card, and then moving on with life, hopefully. So Orcus Spellmasters is not this super hate bear, but it is a card that makes it less, you know, just these 8 cantrip decks are just, you know, it affects them basically. And attacking for 3 is not that bad. I'm trying to put my opponent in a spot where like Nadu is the only relevant card. Everything else is, you know, outshined or kills 1 for 1 while I'm attacking. A lot of the success of Delver is trying to trade one for one and then, you know, get there with the attack step. Let's see what the opponent did. They shuffled. Okay. And here's another land. Hopefully a pass here. Yep, there's the pass. So I like my spot here. Underground Sea is not a good draw. Should we play it and represent force, or do we believe my opponent will just jam regardless? I think my opponent will jam regardless because they're in a pickle, so I'm not going to play the land. Let's say I didn't have any clock in play, then I would play the land in order to buy time. But I don't think I'm buying time here since I'm winning, so my opponent has no choice but to act if they can, right? Okay. Next draw is a Flooded Strand. That's terrible. We can play that card. Helps with push, helps with future brainstorm, etc. So we both had some terrible draw steps, but that's good for me because I have the clock going. That's basically a question I ask myself all the time. Who benefits from this game being, you know, drawn out? Who benefits from turn cycles passing over and over? It's just good to have an understanding of who does that benefit. I will say my opponent's had a lot of turns to find the good cards. Oh, wow, it's Fairy. That's so good. Well, I don't think my opponent has slow-rolled Nadu all along, so that is a good thing. I could daze it with the sewers. Is that crazy? I think I'll daze it here. My opponent will easily pay. That's not really the point. The point is I'm trying to get mileage out of my otherwise, I would say, dead card. The exception to that is if I draw Force of Will and I don't have a blue pair. So if my opponent wants to bounce the Orc Army, that doesn't really do much. They should probably plus this to Fairy and try and use it as a punching bag. I hope it's still, you know, enjoyable to watch here. I have some terrible MTGO lag, but hopefully I'm able to fill the dead air with relevant insights about our beautiful game. For the majority of the time, that is. Sometimes I don't say relevant stuff, and that's just how it goes. Plus to Fairy, my opponent decides to use it as punching bag. So let's try and do the math here. My opponent's at 6. That's 3 plus 3. So if I attack my opponent to 3, they're forced to use to Fairy -3 next turn. If they bounce Bowmasters, they're dead. If they bounce Orc Army, they get pinged. I get a 1/1. They're also dead. So this is probably where... Okay, my opponent could have Endurance here. My opponent could have Endurance here. I think this is where I wasteland my opponent. My opponent could have Endurance. If they do, they jam it. Then I untap, fetch, kill it, and I keep attacking. Yeah, I think this is a good line. They don't have Endurance. Okay. Which is also good for me, so there's that. I guess we get the info from Sewers first. Bauble. Let's get that out of here. I'm actually going to go for the opponent's Dome here with the 3/3. So yes, my opponent can draw a card off Teferi, potentially kill me with Nomad, Nadu, but I couldn't kill my opponent's Teferi anyway. I can get it to 2, then the minus comes. So I think this is my best bet to close out this game. Drawing a Delver, I think is not going to change a whole lot. I guess it's better against, let's say, a single ending or whatever. My opponent, it's definitely on my opponent to come up with something here. But yeah, the deck can win on the spot, and that would not be great. Bowmasters gets bounced. That tells me my opponent just drew Ponder or Brainstorm. Here's Nomad. So the opponent was able to, what do you call it, thread the needle here with the use of Teferi. That was pretty awesome. There's a chance my opponent doesn't go like super far here, of course, but I don't like my chances. This was another great game. I really had great games today. A lot of small decisions, trying to find my spots, trying to use the information I had from Thoughtseize to basically create the best game plan possible. Trying to use, statistics, probability to try and close out my opponent versus trying to control their planeswalker, etc., etc. Now I think it's impossible for the opponent to fizzle. Yeah, now it becomes impossible, right? It's... okay, I feel like we can concede here. That was a sick game. Alright, down a game against Nadu. We have a lot of good cards here, that's the good thing. So 5 good cards, and I really don't like the days as they were. They were not good this game. Nile Spellbomb was good at taking care of exactly Uro. But the funny thing is, always love to hear from happy viewers. And yeah, this guy will enjoy this one for sure. Maybe I cut a Nile Spellbomb because I have the cages. They also stop Uro. Barrogoyfs are interesting. They don't beat their unfair plan, but they're decent against the fair plan. So you could argue I could swap a Nile Spellbomb for a Barrogoyf and be reasonably happy. Also, I should ask myself if Brazen Borrower is a good card. I really don't think it is. It's blue. That's like the only thing. I have 19 blue cards right now, which is not a lot. I'll admit that. That's the first one. So maybe that's the case for the second one over the Barrogoyf. Not because it's good, but because it's blue and it's serviceable. Okay, I like this hand a lot. We have a lot of stuff going on here. So the cage I'm going to wait with a little bit because priority number 1 is establishing our clock. Let's play the Delver turn 1. Then if my opponent goes mana ramp turn 1, then I can go, push the mana ramp, play the cage. So Tundra Ponder is a start that you can usually punish with a Wasteland. I would love for that to happen. Flipping the Delver is for sure priority number 1. Yeah, that was a terrible hit. Let's play the Grafdigger's Cage. Let's play a fetch land for surveilling purposes. Flipping the Delver can oftentimes be the difference between, putting up a meaningful clock versus putting up a non-existent clock. Let's see about this. Carpet of Flowers. I actually think it's something I have to force a will. So what happens if I could also stick around on my Bloodstained Mire, Maybe that's better. Okay. I'll try sticking around on my Bloodstained Mire because I have access to basic Swamp here. So there's a chance that I'm just supposed to let my, like last game, basically say, sure, if you can have infinite mana, I'll try and deal with what matters. Yeah, so now I changed my plan from Surveil onto the, if I don't flip, if I have a bad card, oh wow, that's so bad. I don't want to reveal it, but I want to fetch my basic Swamp out before drawing. Mitigating the carpet. Okay, so let's attack here. Good cast Brainstorm. Not opposed to it. I do have cards like Nethergoyf and Thoughtseize. That would be good hits. Right now, the Murktide doesn't seem amazing. So I guess I reveal the Ponder. I do draw from Bauble here, so like this, I think is correct. Don't play out the sea. Ooh, I think, this is maybe one where I messed up. Or maybe it's the same. So now crack Bauble on opponent's upkeep, because the card on top I don't care about. Yes, that's correct. Okay, so this is the good example of what I talked about game one, where, that's going to be, I have Cage, I guess. This is the example from game one where I talk about how to cleverly set up Revolt. And this is a good case, right? I don't care about the top card in my opponent's turn. I just care about getting to it before flipping the Delver, right? So here's Uro. So let's imagine that's a Nadu. Then I can, in theory, let that resolve or lose the Force War, and then use Fatal Push to kill it because I sack the Bauble on the opponent's upkeep. Here's Dryad Arbor. So my opponent doesn't have any more lands. Very tempting to kill that Dryad Arbor, I must say. I think I'll stay patient here. Tough call. Very tough call. So now I need to make sure that I'm drawing the bad card first and then flipping with the Ponder. So now the Murktide is getting a bit more interesting, I will say. But my confidence level of that card resolving or sticking is also very low. Maybe this is another good spot to cast your cantrip. I can find the black cards I was talking about earlier. Come on, Magic Online. You can do it. I believe you. So there's a Force Pitch and some somewhat live cards. Murktide as the Force Pitch. And then I have a couple of threats, and I hope to get the job done. Okay, this is probably going to be a keep, but it's also going to be very important how I stack these. So if I have access to 2 of those within the next turn. So which ones should be my bottom card? Actually quite interesting. What's the worst thing that can happen to me right now? It's like Nada with Force backup, I guess. So I play around that better by having access to the fetch right now. But having a land here is just so... It's just not very impactful. The Brazen Borrower can for sure turn up the heat on my opponent. Maybe I'm just supposed to accept that and play like this. Oh, maybe I can... Am I Murktiding next turn? Or am I baiting? Could be a baiting situation where I want the Murktide as the big finisher. Let's put that there. And then I think I might as well do it like this. Okay. Not perfect at all, but I think this is serviceable. I think I found a decent line where if I'm forced to push with Revolt, I will do it, but otherwise I'm not going to do it. Well, obviously. And then my backup plan is kind of having Brazen Bounce available next turn cycle, and then the turn after that I can cast the Murktide third card down. This is not likely to work, but I think it's better than random cards. I think I'm an underdog here, definitely. Games like this is where the Nadu deck really shines because it can kind of win out of nowhere. So the sense of urgency is always high on the side of the opponent, and they have solid cards like, you know, plows and forces and random creatures to kind of stem the bleeding. So a way to win this game for me is that my opponent loses to basically Mana Flood. Not a Winged Wisdom. So we are forced to willing that because of the value it represents. Yeah, that's the thing. That is the thing. So strong. So now it resolves. Now I can't counter, and now I can't kill. So if my opponent has a Nomad, this game's over. Very textbook draw here from the Nadu deck in case that happens. Okay, so my opponent does not have the Nomad, so we get to play on, but oof, that was a brutal situation. So let's see. Do I want to draw the Brazen? Yes, it's... If I had switched the order of those, I would be very happy right now. So, yeah, so tough. So let's fetch here. Let's go Sewers. Let's respond to this one by killing the Nadu, because whether this works or not is probably going to be important for how I resolve this Surveil. Shoot this Sheriff. I think it's acceptable. Now I have to play out land and basically grant my opponent infinite mana. And they even missed a land drop in this game, which tells me that I'm in big trouble. My opponent has a ton of spells in hand. So yeah, very textbook from the Nadu deck here, showing the power of Carpet, showing the power of Veil. Oof. Yeah, Carpet is very hard to play against. The Swamp definitely makes it better compared to all the Delver variants, but it's so hard. Whenever you get your Force of Will veiled, and the creature you're trying to kill also gives card advantage, that's not a game you're winning. That's just how it goes. Here's another one, I guess. I see what you're saying. So my opponent knows I don't have access to Revolt here, so maybe, just maybe, I can catch my opponent here. Keen-Eyed Curator. You got it. That card is raising me. So end step, I'm going to try and shoot the Sheriff. A way to win this game here is to ignore my opponent's mana sources, hope they're stranded with a bunch of Zeniths, burrow in the graveyard, and then kind of chip away, but I don't think I've done a very good job of executing that game plan. I mean, I've probably done what I could this game, I would assume, but I'm just saying it's not enough. Brainstorm response looking for the second Veil. That would be godlike. That would be absolutely godlike. Here's Brainstorm Fetch. The thing is, I have a 7/7 on my hands next turn that is easily raising my Delver. My Murktide Regent is gone. Okay, so it did end up working. Wasteland is horrible. I don't think I'm allowed to play out any lands here. I think what I'm allowed to do is hope to draw the perfect Brainstorm to turn those 2 bad cards into 3 good ones. Back for 3. Curator gets going. I think that's like the key to that Nadu deck. I want to get back to that deck. I worked a lot on that deck a few weeks ago in the beginning of the format. I want to get back to that deck because it's very hard to just hate it out, right? You can't really, oh yeah, I'll just play these cards and beat Nadu. That's not really how it works because the combo is so subtle. And you have stuff like the Uro, Curator, Bristly Bill, Endurance. You have these solid cards around it that makes it, you know, if my plan is to Fatal Push or shoot the Sheriff onto a Nadu, they just win the resource war. They don't have to combo. I think that deck is quite cool. A deck that can have such a big access to, easy access to a lot of mana. They don't care about days. They only care about Wasteland to an extent. That's a nightmare for Blue-Black Delver. We need to play against, you know, combo decks that kind of fall apart or prison decks that we can kind of pick apart and be efficient against. This is very tough. The basic line decks we faced today. Orcish Bowmasters will grant my opponent a card, which is funny. So I guess I pass and I hope to block the Nadu and ping it with Bowmasters, then draw removal for the Raccoon. This is incredibly slim. Opponent keeps shrinking my graveyard. That makes a lot of sense. I am a Murktide Nethergoyf deck after all. A little bit of surveilling here as well. So yeah, this game is all but over. I'll basically just see if I can perform a miracle like the Esper player almost did last round. That was amazing. I'm not gonna rob you guys for that chance. If I concede, there's for sure no comeback, right? So I kind of have to use this as an opportunity to let my opponent sleep a little bit at the wheel with the logic that, oh, if my opponent had Bowmasters, they for sure would have cast it. Good games, great match, and with that, I'm going to conclude the video. I think we had 2 pretty awesome matches with tons of learning, so I'm not going to, you know, jam a million more games. I think you don't necessarily have to record 1,000 games to upload. I think it's good to just have a couple of good ones with lots of learnings, and I think we succeeded with that today, and that's kind of the point of this channel. We want to grow stronger for the next time we play, so as always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here soon on the channel. Bye, guys.